This is the story of Tofu Dreg engineering in its most personal form. The same system that produces burning EVs on the highway has now put a potential bomb in your backpack.
现在是凌晨2点半，我充电宝在这儿。
It's 2:30 in the morning. Just now, I heard a bang from the bedroom. I ran out to check, and it was already on fire like this. On June 23rd, in the city of Xintai, Hebei, a man was woken by that sound. A power bank he had used for 2 years without any issue had just exploded, severely burning through his sofa. He later reflected on the incident. I can't imagine what would have happened if I had been asleep. The same scene played out for a woman in Fuzhou on July 16th. At 2:30 in the morning, her ROMOSS power bank exploded on her bedside table. She later reported the device wasn't even plugged in at the time. When she tried to get help, she told reporters she was met with automated replies, and because her device wasn't on the official recall list, she was left with no recourse. The danger escalated to severe physical harm. On July 22nd in Shanghai, a man was walking down the street when his pants suddenly burst into flames. His friend, Miss Wang, later recounted.
I saw black smoke float past me. The fire got bigger and bigger, burning from his pocket all the way to his knee.
The power bank inside his pocket had spontaneously combusted. It burned straight through the fabric, causing third-degree burns that required skin graft surgery, estimated to cost up to 40,000 yuan. According to Miss Wang, he wasn't even using it. It just exploded. On July 1st, at the Xi'an Medical University Library, a student's backpack began spewing thick white smoke from a combusting ROMOSS device. On July 7th, as reported by GUPI News, an office security camera captured another one exploding while charging. In both cases, and many others, the victims confirmed the same damning fact: their device was not on any official recall list. The evidence of a systemic failure is overwhelming. In early June 2025, 21 Beijing universities issued campus-wide bans after their tests found the devices had a combustion rate 300% higher than the industry average. Victims like Du Yan, a student whose dorm room fire caused 20,000 yuan, about 200 USD, in damages, were left with no recourse from a company that had already collapsed. On July 23rd, the power bank crisis struck the public transit system when a passenger's device began spewing thick smoke inside a crowded Xiamen metro car. Metro staff quickly secured the smoldering device at the next station, preventing a full-blown fire. Soon, the crisis escalated to 30,000 feet. On March 20th, 2025, passengers aboard Hong Kong Airlines flight HX115 from Hangzhou heard a commotion. A power bank in an overhead bin had caught fire. An event investigators call thermal runaway. The plane was forced to make an emergency landing. As documented by the French Aviation Safety Agency, the BEA, the device was confirmed to be a 20,000 mAh power bank. The in-flight emergencies continued. On June 13th, passengers aboard Shanghai Airlines flight FM 9449 found themselves fighting a fire at 30,000 feet. A power bank began spewing thick smoke in the cabin. Passengers formed a frantic relay, passing bottles of mineral water to douse the flames. One passenger later described the feeling as surviving a disaster. Just thinking about it is frightening. China state media would later report a total of 15 separate incidents of power banks catching fire or smoking on flights this year alone. The response at airports became swift. At Shenzhen Bao'an Airport, security began specifically checking for and banning the recalled ROMOSS models from being brought onto any aircraft. On July 16th, at Wuhan Tianhe International Airport, a male passenger was denied entry at a security checkpoint for carrying a power bank without a required 3C safety logo. In response, the man threw the device to the ground, where it immediately began smoking and caught fire. The scene at Wuhan Airport reveals a crucial truth. The danger wasn't new, only the frequency of the disasters was. For years, the industry's safety problem was a slow burn. But by the summer of 2025, the system had finally reached its breaking point. What was once a contained issue had become a national crisis. A wave of fire and fear was sweeping the country, and it was about to consume the companies responsible. The crisis brought down two of the biggest names in China's tech accessory market, but their falls were dramatically different. One collapsed into chaos, the other executed a controlled demolition. The first was ROMOSS, For a decade, it was the undisputed king of China's online market, the price butcher, commanding up to 40% of sales with its ultra-low-cost devices. Its fall was a lesson in corporate disintegration. On June 16th, it recalled nearly 500,000 units, citing a fire risk. But behind the scenes, the company was already hollowed out. According to internal employees cited by Daily Economic News, its 5 key executives had vanished from company communications back in April, 2 months before the public recall. The final collapse was swift. On July 6th, ROMOSS suspended all operations. Its online stores were wiped clean, and regulators revoked its mandatory 3C safety certifications, making it illegal to sell its products. Hundreds of employees were left behind, their pay slashed, with many now suing the company they once worked for. While ROMOSS imploded, the crisis also engulfed another industry leader, Anker Innovations. Its problems were global, with a massive recall of over 1.1 million units in the United States, announced on June 12th, followed by a recall of over 71,000 units in China. But Anker's handling of the crisis was a study in strategic communication. Instead of collapsing into silence, Anker went on the record. It publicly blamed a single source for the problem, a supplier who, Anker claimed, made unapproved raw material changes to the battery's core components. Anker's finger pointed to a single high-profile source, a major industry supplier named Amprius, based in Wuxi. This was the common denominator. Amprius supplied the core battery cells to both the premium brand, Anker, and the budget Penji. Christ butcher! ROMOSS. And while ROMOSS was the biggest name to implode, the crisis quickly proved the danger was not isolated to one company. It was a systemic rot. The evidence shows Anker was right about the source. In the wake of the crisis, Chinese regulators suspended or revoked 74 of Amprius's own 3C safety certifications for its battery cells. The fallout was immediate, hitting other major brands like Ugreen and Baseus, whose products were also built on the same faulty foundation. But this raises a more disturbing question. Why was a major supplier producing Tofu Dreg components in the first place? The answer lies in a business model built on a set of numbers that are both simple and damning. The story begins in a market flooded with astonishingly cheap goods. On Chinese live streaming platforms, power banks were sold for as little as 9.9 yuan, less than $1.50. This was the battlefield ROMOSS chose to enter. As a major brand, ROMOSS made the strategic choice to sell its own 20,000 mAh power banks for as low as 69 yuan, or about $10. To understand the consequences of that choice, let's follow the money. First, the 69 yuan retail price. ROMOSS doesn't get all of it. The online store takes its cut, let's say a conservative 25%. So, 69 yuan for the platform leaves ROMOSS with just 52 in revenue. Now, they have to build the product with that 52 yuan. Here, they face 2 paths. A factory manager named Gao Gang laid out the costs for reporters. Gao said, a good quality, safe 20,000 mAh battery cell costs over 20 yuan. A poor quality one costs only about 10 yuan. Let's do the math on path 1. The safe build. The quality 20 yuan cell, plus a proper safety circuit, durable casing and assembly, brings the total cost to build the device to about 45 yuan. So, 52 yuan in revenue minus 45 yuan in costs leaves a remainder of just 7 yuan, that's $1. From that single dollar, ROMOSS had to pay for all its marketing, shipping, office rent, and the salaries of its hundreds of employees. It is an impossible business model. So they were left with path 2, the Tofu Dreg build. They start with a cheap 10 yuan cell. They use a cheaper circuit board with minimal safety features and a flimsy case. The total cost for this unsafe product drops to about 22 yuan. Now, 52 yuan in revenue, minus 22 yuan in costs, leaves 30 yuan. This is the only path where there's enough money left over to run the company. The choice to sell at 69 yuan, or $10, made the choice to build an unsafe product inevitable. But what about the customers who paid more? As 2 betrayed consumers in this clip asked. For 100 yuan, you shouldn't buy a bomb, but this is a ticking bomb in your pocket. They, and many others, paid between 100 and 145 yuan, yet their devices still exploded. So, could ROMOSS have made a safe product for that higher price? Let's do the math again, this time for a 120 yuan power bank. After the retailer's cut, ROMOSS receives about 90 yuan in revenue. The cost to build a safe device with the quality 20 yuan cell and proper components is about 45 yuan. That leaves a healthy margin of 45 yuan, more than enough to run a profitable, sustainable business. The answer is yes, they absolutely could have. So why did the more expensive models also explode? First, it was a poisoned supply chain. ROMOSS's entire business was built on sourcing the cheapest possible components. They likely used the same pool of cheap, unreliable cells for all their products. The extra price you paid for a 120 yuan model didn't buy you a safer core. It bought you superficial features like a different plastic case or an extra USB port. Second, it was a shell game of greed. By using the same cheap parts in their premium models, ROMOSS could turn a healthy 45 yuan margin into a massive 68 yuan windfall. Paying more didn't buy you safety, it bought you the illusion of safety. Industry experts state that brands like ROMOSS are directly responsible for creating these conditions. By choosing to compete on price and demanding impossibly low costs from their suppliers, they poisoned the entire system. As one expert bluntly put it, these brands operated with a complete disregard for the survival of the cell factories. The fallout from the crisis created two distinct disasters, one for the consumer and one for the entire industry. For customers, the ROMOSS recall system collapsed into chaos. Consumers faced online queues of over 177,000 people, only to be told the company was too broke to issue refunds due to an insufficient seller's deposit. This left hundreds of thousands of people with a ticking bomb in their homes, with no way to get their money back and no safe way to dispose of the device. The damage then spread through the supply chain. When regulators suspended the safety certifications of the core supplier, Amprius, major brands who also used the faulty cells saw their own certifications get revoked, proving the rot was systemic. So where was the Chinese government in all of this? Where was the CCP, the regime that promises to serve the people while millions of dangerous products flooded the market? The answer is that this crisis wasn't an accident the government failed to stop. It was the predictable result of a system the party itself created. For years, the CCP's primary goal has been economic growth at any cost. A booming, low-cost manufacturing sector creates jobs and projects an image of national strength, helping to legitimize the party's rule. Safety regulations, like the mandatory 3C certification, have existed on paper for years. But the flourishing of a Tofu Dreg market proves these rules were either ignored or selectively enforced. This was an era of willful neglect. The regime turned a blind eye as long as the factories kept running and the economic data looked good. Then, the crisis exploded into public view. Fires on airplanes and viral videos of exploding devices became a threat to social stability, the one thing the CCP cannot tolerate. And so, the party playbook was activated. The response was swift, authoritarian, and designed to project an image of absolute control. First, the Civil Aviation Administration issued an immediate top-down ban on the dangerous power banks, a show of force to calm the flying public. Next, the State Administration for Market Regulation began suspending 3C certifications en masse, creating the appearance of a sweeping crackdown on corrupt companies. Finally, the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology announced it was drafting a Twitter new national standard, a promise that the problem would be fixed in the future. But this is a performative crackdown designed to manage public anger, not deliver justice. It addresses the symptoms, but deliberately ignores the disease. What has the regime failed to do? It has failed to provide any real justice for its own citizens. The recall system is a sham, with consumers stuck in queues of over 177,000 people, only to be told the company has no money to refund them. The government has done nothing to force these companies to make their victims whole. And where is the accountability for the executives? The leaders of ROMOSS simply vanished. In a country with the most sophisticated surveillance network on Earth, it is inconceivable that 5 high-profile executives could disappear without the tacit permission of the state. The ultimate failure is this. The CCP has not dismantled the corrupt ecosystem of involution because it is a system that has served its interests. The new rules and standards are just repairs on a fundamentally rotten foundation. The party is not the referee in this crisis. It is the architect.